I would like to begin, if we can, with the breaking news we've been dealing with this hour. The Wall Street Journal reporting President Trump has ordered new strikes against Iran. CBS reporting that those strikes could be targeting energy infrastructure specifically. And we were just having a conversation with Aaron David Miller about how Iran will likely try to retaliate, not necessarily vertically, but horizontally in the region. I just wonder if you might expect that that retaliation could potentially include asymmetric strikes, things like cyber attacks. Is that something the United States should be prepared for?
Yeah, it's been a concern the entire time that the Iran war has been waged, that one of the ways that the Iranian military can get to the U.S. is through cyber attacks. And there's good precedent for that. Even when there isn't a hot war going on, we've seen a variety of different cyber attacks where Iranian groups will go after industrial control systems specifically, the interface that you use to control a water plant, for example, and go in and change the controls. We saw this for years after the October 7th attack in Israel. A bunch of different industrial control systems were hacked by Iranian groups. So certainly a concern, and the industrial sector here in the U.S. and a lot of the equipment manufacturers are very much on high alert for the possibility of this type of retaliatory action.
Yeah, well, just the news today, according to our intelligence agencies, that Iran was likely behind the cyber attack on more than 30 municipal water systems in Minnesota. The president today suggested that this was Minnesota's own problem. But is this the type of thing we could see more of? And to what extent can we defend ourselves against it?
The type of attack you're seeing in Minnesota is really widespread, and there are some really good defensive measures that defenders need to put in place. One of the issues here is that when you have a device that connects a physical system to the internet, and an attacker can get in and change that physical system through the controls online, that's where you've got this jump from the cyber world to the physical world, and you see issues like water tanks getting overflows, changes in chlorine level, really scary stuff. So for anyone who's out there operating any of these systems that have that physical cyber touch, it's really important to do the basics. Change the default passwords, make sure there's multi-factor authentication. The agencies have been saying this for years, but it's all the more important now because so many of these systems are relatively newly hooked up to the internet. It's a 5-6 year thing in some cases, and it's a really important part of the attack surface from the Iranian side that they could go after here in the U.S.
Well, hence the push to bring it back to the conversation around AI to try to get a hold on models that potentially can exploit and identify cyber vulnerabilities.
Well, and it works both ways. There's a lot of advancement in the ability to go find what vulnerable systems are out there and patch them as well. So certainly it's something where you've got to be able to find where are the unlocked doors, if you will, in the digital system, and how do you go and patch them at scale, close them at scale so that you've got a safer operating picture across the country.
So it brings us to what might happen on Sunday, Laura. The White House is reportedly set to meet a deadline to release this framework for AI regulation. And I'm wondering what your expectation is. We've taken a couple swings at this, and the president's made clear they do not want to block innovation or slow the race with China. And in fact, there will be no requirement to comply with these rules, realizing the companies themselves that would be adhering to these rules are writing them. Will this make any difference? Is this what the industry needs?
I think what we're going to see Sunday is a capture of where a lot of the conversation's been in the last 2-3 months, which is around what does responsible innovation look like in AI. And if you want to zoom out here for a second, you've got these 3 major frontier lab companies. You have OpenAI, you have Anthropic, and then you have Google with Gemini. And they're all in a race to innovate on their models. And they're also all in a race to figure out how do you have controls, guardrails, safety measures in place to make sure that they're not going to do something that they don't want the model to do. And you've seen the commerce action back in June that paused Anthropic's rollout of a model. So everyone's on a little bit of a trigger here to figure out what is the right way to do responsible innovation and still keep pushing the models forward. And that dialogue's been really loud and it's been very public. A lot of the companies, you mentioned this Hugging Face incident precedent where OpenAI's model broke out and hacked another company, Anthropic. There's reporting on that happening there as well. So transparency, I think, is the other piece. And that's what I'm looking for on Sunday. Are AI companies and is the White House saying we need to be clear on when things go wrong and we need to understand in this evolving atmosphere, how do we make this safer?
Well, so as we consider safety and what some of these labs are trying to do around it, it's those very same labs, in the case of at least OpenAI and Anthropic, who seem less eager, if you will, around this whole conversation around open weight models. And I wonder, Laura, what your take is.
I actually think everyone from the sort of compute side of the house to the closed models and labs have been interestingly supportive of the open weight system. And just to zoom out for a second on that, open weight models, you're able to go in, download the model for yourself, download the weight for yourself as the customer, and then go and use it and tailor it to your system versus the closed model where you're accessing it through OpenAI or Anthropic, right? And this open model and open weight ecosystem is really important in the U.S. to keep driving at. And I actually think in the last couple of days, you've seen a lot of signals from even the closed labs to say we need a more flourishing open weight system. And that's a little bit of a interesting point to see where China's gone, where they've really doubled down on an open weight system. So more to come on how that debate plays out.
This comes along with a debate around export controls. Laura, you might have heard our conversation about Moonshot. It's funny how all these stories end up connecting somehow. 20,000 NVIDIA chips said to be used by Moonshot by way of Alibaba. Did the U.S. do something wrong here? Was this diversion through another country? What do you make of it?
Look, the facts are still coming out on this one, but the fact that Moonshot, which is very much a Beijing competitor to a lot of the models and labs that we have in the U.S., had the compute access to these 20,000 super powerful chips is fascinating. I think it is a worry here that the rules that were put in place earlier in January 26, around who gets access and how rental of that compute can work need another look. And with all export controls, you conceptually know that you can't get to 100%. You can't put up a digital wall, for example, to keep China from getting chips, but you can slow down their progress. And that's what this race is about. And that's the leverage point that the U.S. government has against China on this AI race. And it's a little bit of the protection that can be given to companies here in the U.S. It's those really high-end chips, and China's trying desperately to figure out how they get to the next level on their own chips the same way.